Hello friends, my name is Steve and this is Steve Talks Books and Stuff. Every week I try and do an update video to talk about what I've been reading, what I'm going to read, stuff that's going on the channel, and some stuff to chat about. Typically I read horror and grimdark, but I read a little bit of everything, so I try not to just stick to certain genres. I like to read a ton of different genres, but I typically read horror and grimdark, at least I have been lately, so just an idea of what I typically read, but I am open to reading anything. So this week, I had a pretty busy week, I gotta say. it's been kind of busy. But this week, and my November TBR is a little crazy, so I was trying to get off to a good start. I was determined to get off to a good start because it's how you finish, but it's also how you start. I don't want to get off to a bad start. So I have a full TBR, and so what I read this week, I was just trying to get through a couple of smaller books so I can get to the bigger ones. And plus, I had a couple of conversation videos this week that I wanted to finish these books before the conversations with the authors, which I'll get to here in a second. The first book I read is Nocturnal Blood by Vitlame Mist. And Nocturnal Blood is a horror young adult, I believe it may be classified as. It's a vampire story. And the story is about a woman or a young girl, actually a high schooler, who goes on an adventure. I don't want to say too much, but I've heard a lot of people compare it to like a Thelma and Louise type of story. It's two girls on the run. I do like the vampires in this story. They are not sparkly. They are vicious. They are cunning. They are methodical. And there is a bigger system or bigger universe here at play that gets touched on. So there's a lot more to the story than we learn in the first book. One thing I really liked about this one is the main character. She's teased in high school, and the way that Vitlame words it really puts you in that position. And I think all of us have been teased at one time or another, but it does a great job at feeling those feelings, like when you're being teased or when someone's laughing at you or mistreating you. Those feelings you get and the way that you react to them, your body language, and the way that you avoid looking at people and you just want to be left alone. And Vitlame's writing is, and I hear people say a lot that, people say something's easy to read, and some people think, well, then I don't want to read it then. But when I say it's easy to read, it's very smooth. And before, I would start this book, and when I would start looking up and say, okay, what page am I on? 30, 40 pages had gone by. It's just really slick, really smooth. It's really easy to read. And that's tough to do. So Vitlame does a great job in this first book. There is 3 books out with this trilogy. And Vitlame also has some other books that I've read and some other short stories from collections that I've read. But this is pretty much on par with, as far as the writing goes, it's very neat and very clean. I will say that I read The Banquet. It's a novella. It's a very short novella. I read that a couple months ago, and I can see how much her writing has improved. Not that this is bad. It's just I still enjoyed this one, but I can see her writing is a lot tighter now than it was when she wrote this first book, which is to be expected. So after I finished Nocturnal Blood, I jumped right into a book I've been wanting to read for a long time, and that is We Men of Ash and Shadow by H.L. Tinsley. It's a grimdark story. I've heard a lot of people compare it to Peaky Blinders. Reading people's reviews of this was very similar to what people said about Priest of Bones before I read that. So it made me excited, and it is pretty similar to Priest of Bones. I don't think it's as dark as Priest of Bones. This book is definitely grimdark, but I don't think it's as dark as Priest of Bones, and I don't think Priest of Bones is that dark. But then again, my perspective is a little skewed because I mostly read darker books, dark fantasy and horror. So take that with a grain of salt. That's subjective. But if you enjoy books with, characters who are not perfect, they're all flawed, they are all interesting, funny dialogue. And one thing that stuck out to me in this one was the first 120 pages. It was fine. Like it was good. And I don't know if what happened, if it was just me or if this is something that other people have said, because they're trying to avoid too many in detail reviews. But after about 120 pages, really hits a stride, and it's moving, but it just really hits. It feels like it just hits a stride at like 120 pages. The story just takes off. It just felt different. There was a different feeling to it, at least for me, about a third of the way through. And it is a relatively short book for fantasy, but I enjoyed it quite a bit. I think the characters are all great. I like the stories. None of them are, one thing that bothers me about stories like this, and this also is going back to Nocturnal Blood, is the main character in Nocturnal Blood is a young woman who is just a normal, everyday person and thrown into these extraordinary and terrifying situations. And she doesn't turn into like a James Bond and, roundhouse people, and she's suddenly, this Rambo type character. And the same thing is true with this book. I think the characters who are powerful, who are effective, or who are violent, or who can hurt people, they're not invincible. So they aren't like a Jason Bourne type or a James Bond or Rambo. They're all scary and formidable, but none of them are this just killing machine who you never worry about. That's what I love about Grimdark, is that you never can get comfortable, and you never know what's going to happen. So this is a great story, great book. So if you're into Grimdark, if you like stories like Priest of Bones, if you've read Priest of Bones, or something like Peaky Blinders, where you have kind of like, the little bit of political intrigue and some gangster type stuff, and these environments where these really tense situations in the society, then check out We Men of Bastion Shadow. I think if you're into this genre or you want to dip into it, it's a good place to start if you want to get into Grimdark and don't know where to start. I already made my suggestions for my video for fantasy suggestions, and I hadn't read that yet, but if I would have read that would have been on my list for people wanting to get into fantasy. Maybe it's time for, if you're into Grimdark, this is what you should check out. Maybe, I don't know. Just throwing it out there. Then after I finished that book, a few hours after I finished it, we had our kickoff video for our Beguiled by Night group read. So for those who don't know, every month or so, Stacy's all booked, and Ashley from Read Now Sleep Later and my wife Brandy, they have these 24-hour readathon things where they kick off their 24 hours with the midnight reading sprint video, and they have a bunch of games and they have a lot of fun. I used to work nights and I would be at work watching it. So now that I'm home, I try to jump on the ones that I can. We did have one for The Shining last month, and this month we are reading Beguiled by Night. And the reason that I picked this book is because that cover is badass, but also because when I read about this book, it was described as a vampire tale with horror, time travel, and some romance. And Stacy, Ashley, and my wife Brandy, they've all been really cool about reading books that I suggest to them, which are normally horror and grimdark. And they kind of give me a hard time about, well, you should read romance with us. So when I saw this described as a little bit of romance, I thought, well, maybe that's, kind of bridge the gap a little bit. So they all said yes, thankfully, and we kicked off our read of it with the author, Nicole Eigener. I hope I'm pronouncing Nicole's last name properly. But we had a midnight kickoff where we read the book. We chatted about vampires, about horror. Stacy has some fun trivia games for us to play. It was just a blast. It was a lot of fun. Really good conversation. Really good. It's just fun with that group all the time. So had just a blast with that. It was a lot of fun. And I get tired now early because I wake up early now. I'm not working nights anymore, so I turn into a pumpkin about 10:30 usually at night. And so these ones I had to get some Red Bulls in me and get me going longer, but a lot of fun. And Beguiled by Night is off to a great start. I just started it. So far, I was really surprised. It's Nicole Eigener's first book. It does not read as a first book. I'm really surprised. So, and plus Brian Bowyer. Brian, I know I always butcher your last name. I'm sorry. Brian had really glowing things to say about this. So if a guy that wrote Sinister Mix enjoys this book, then I was hopeful before, but I am even more excited because I've heard Brian's thoughts on it. So you can't go wrong with the Brian stamp of approval. So also this week I started reading one of the bigger books I maybe have ever read, and that is 11/22/63. We are having an online discussion on Monday, 11/22/21, to discuss this book. And so I had to start it early. I'm about a little over 100 pages in, and let me just say that I haven't been the biggest fan of, The Dark Tower's fine. It's not bad. I think I've given 3 stars to The Gunslinger and to the last book, The Wastelands. They were fine. I didn't dislike them, but I did enjoy Drawing of the Three. It was good. But from the Stephen King books that I've read, this, even only 100 pages in, this is my favorite Stephen King book. I can say already, it is fantastic, and I'm just hooked into this world and these characters, having a blast with this book. So I'm really, really excited. The hard part will be finishing this before next Monday, the 22nd, and plus I have some other books to read. So I'm hoping to knock over a few hundred pages today, which is Sunday. I hope to have this done by about Thursday or Friday is my hope. But it is a chunker of a book. And we are also discussing the Hulu series after this. We haven't chosen a date yet, but we'll be watching and discussing that series as well. So those of you who want to hop onto that, we are organizing that on our forum. Like I said, we haven't picked dates, but something that we're going to do. So after I finish 11/22/63, I will be reading Nightmare Land Volume 2, Lullaby. We are going to be meeting with author Daniel Barnett next Saturday to discuss each book. We are doing this every 2 weeks, and our group will receive an arc for the 6th book that isn't released yet. So it's just been a really fun time, great group of people, great conversation. So I'm going to finish this, and thankfully it's tiny. So I'm going to finish this before Saturday. That should not be a problem. Also this week, I did receive an arc for Hunger for Death from Joshua Marcella, so I'm going to be chipping away at that. I'm thinking a story a day. It's not released yet. I was really fortunate and lucky to have gotten an arc for it. I love Joshua Marcella's writing. He is one of the nicest people I've met, just in general. He's just such a nice guy, such a supportive person, and I'm really excited to get into it. I feel really, really good about being able to read that early. So I'm going to be chipping away at that. And as soon as I finish those two, I'm hoping by next Friday or Saturday, I'll have all those done. I have to start the 4th book in the Dark Tower series, Wizard and Glass. We'll have a meetup for this one on the 27th. So I have to have this one done by the 27th, and it's a chunker. It's a chunker. So I'm hoping a week will be enough to finish this. I usually plan on about 100 pages a day is kind of what I plan for. Unless it's something like 11/22/63 where it ends up being a 1,000-page book, then I try and do a little bit more. But I try to aim for about 100 pages a day. What do you aim for? Or what is your kind of your goal to read each day? I'm curious. So last week was a very busy week on the channel. I had a lot of stuff going on. I don't know what happened because I went through this little bit of a lull with author conversations. And all of a sudden I have just a ton of conversations planned with authors, whether they're live or they are planned, pre-recorded and then release them after. But I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden I have some people have approached me, other authors I've just chatted with, and it's like, hey, let's do something, and we end up planning it. I don't know why that happened. I'm not sure what it is, if it's just a phase or what, but I'm full for almost through December with conversations, and I'm doing almost 2 a week. That's not counting the Friday conversations. The Friday conversations, I am full to the end of the year. I just scheduled the last one on December 17th because Christmas and New Year's both land on, Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve both land on Fridays. So I was thinking on New Year's, maybe not New Year's Eve, but maybe earlier in the day or something. I don't know. I was thinking about doing a meetup for whoever wants to come, just jump on stream and have like a year in review and just chat about the year. Is anybody interested in that? I thought that might be fun. Something just like a just because stream that we used to have, something like that, where we just jump on. Anyone's welcome to join and just chat about the year. Just shoot the shit and just have a good time. So anybody watching this, if you are interested, if that sounds like fun, if that's something you want to watch, let me know. So this last week started off with a conversation with Elliot Parker. He is an author who writes mostly suspense and thriller books. And, I've been thinking about, some channels focus on certain genres, or they only interview horror authors, they only interview fantasy authors, or they only read certain genres. And I'm glad I talked to Elliot because he writes thrillers, and it was a different type of conversation, and not in a good or a bad way. It was just different. So I find it intriguing. I thought it was really interesting the way that the conversation was different with someone who focuses more on suspense and anticipation and writing a thriller. And Elliot it was a really, really great conversation. And we talked about publishing and his first book and how to get your book into bookstores. How do you get a blurb? Why you should level your librarian. Tips for people who want to become writers, who want to reach out and find other people that are close to them. I mean, it was just a ton of fun. Really, really enjoyed it. It was just one of those. I felt like it was one of the. I think the conversation went a little bit differently than it usually does, and I try to mix things up. I try to keep things interesting because I don't want to just have a cookie cutter mold. And some of the questions are going to be repeats, right? You're going to have some questions that are repeated, but I try to limit those as much as I can, just because if the answer will be the same for most people, I try to avoid it. But there's some that you'll get different answers every time for. So, but I thought that was a really, really great conversation. Then on Friday, I had 2 Friday conversations this week. The first one was with Vit LeMay Mist, the previously mentioned author of Nocturnal Blood and of The Banquet. And she's just a fun person to talk to. We talked about horror, vampires, Iceland, sports, just differences. We talked about soccer or football. And just one of those people you really just enjoy talking to. And she's funny. She's talented. I love her perspective and her views. And we are going to be watching Kingdom on Netflix, watching season 1 of Kingdom. I think we're going to have a meetup for that. So I don't know if we picked the time and the date yet, but stay tuned for that if you are interested in joining us or interested in watching. A few hours later, I had a chat with Brandon Applegate, whose book, I want to be sure I get this right, Those We Left Behind and Other Sacrifices. It's a short story collection, and his book is going to be released on November 23rd. Had a really great conversation with him. He's a really passionate and enthusiastic person. The way that he talks about writing and about the process that he went through to get his book ready to publish, it made me want to go write. And even though I haven't really no desire to write, he's one of those people who are infectious. He's really enthusiastic, and you could tell he has this fire burning for writing, and it's something that he really loves. He's passionate about it. So I really enjoyed that one too. It was really great discussion. So it's been fun, a lot of fun. Then this morning I was on Yolene Reeves' channel. We had a discussion for Kings of Ash and the Ash and Sand trilogy. It is spoiler filled, so if you haven't read the trilogy, don't watch that video. But I met up with Yolene, Stacy from Stacy's All Booked, and also Richard Nell, the author, of course, of Ash and Sand trilogy. I'm not even going to edit that out. But we met up this morning to chat about the series and about the book. And Richard is another one of those people who, he and I have talked on streams or interviews or conversations or whatever for probably, 6 hours. And every time I sit down and hear him talk, every time he talks, I'm just glued to whatever he's saying. He's just, you think you run out of things to say and things to learn, but he's just full of information, and he's just full of just fun. It's just one of those people, just another one of those people you really want to just talk to for hours, and hours fly by. So this week is another pretty busy week on the channel. This week I have a couple of author conversations that are pre-recorded. Tomorrow, November 15th, I'll be chatting with H.L. Tinsley, the author of We Men in Ash and Shadow. So if you have any questions for Holly, leave them down below. Then on the 18th, I'll be chatting with author Catherine Silva, who is the author of The Wild Dark. Again, if you have any questions for Catherine, please leave them down below. I will be sure and add them to the list. Or if you have any just general suggestions for the conversation videos, I'm always open to suggestions. So I really appreciate when all of you add them in. So this Friday, I'll be chatting with friend and booktuber Yulene Reeds for the first Friday conversation, and that is at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Then at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be talking with Thomas J. Devins. He's the author of Stone and Shield, Fall of Emeros series. So I will be chatting with him about his books. I have both of the first two books, and he actually sent me a signed copy of the books. This is not the signed copy. This is the book. This is the copy that I'll be reading because I keep those separate. I like to have one copy signed and one that I read. Am I weird? Let me know down below. So so we'll be chatting with Thomas about his books, fantasy, and I hope to have some interaction from the chat. That's what makes these Friday conversations fun, is when all of you interact and ask questions and hang out with us. Also want to mention that Stacy from Stacy's All Booked is hosting a Robin Hobb 24-hour readathon. That's next Friday at 11 p.m. Mountain Time. So that would be 12 p.m. Central, 1 a.m. Eastern Time, and 10 p.m. Pacific. She's hosting that on her channel. I'm not reading Robin Hobb, but you can read any Robin Hobb book. Join their reading sprints and their little get-together. They always have a good time. I'm not reading Robin Hobb, so not sure if I'll participate in that one. But if you are reading Robin Hobb and want to chat with them or want to hang out, jump on and participate. Then next Sunday in the morning, I'm having an author conversation with author J.R. Carroll, or is it Carroll? Carroll. I hope I'm not mispronouncing your name, Joseph. But he is an author. He wrote this book, More Than a Vampire. And Philip Chase recently had a conversation video or an interview with him. He also released a review of his book. He's been really supportive. He's always popping in to chat during the live streams, where he'll jump on Twitter and we'll have go back and forth a little bit. So really, really friendly, supportive person. I hope to learn more about him and his book, and I'll be reading his book next month. One thing I want to mention is I want to thank everyone who's been downloading the podcast. This week we did pass 500 downloads. Yeah, I had no idea it was going to get that far. I know 500 is like no big deal for some people. Like, I'm sure most podcasts that's like a Tuesday or whatever. But for me, it's a big deal because I didn't know that anyone would listen. Now it's on Spotify. My podcast is on Spotify. It's on Stitcher. It's on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, a couple other ones I can't remember right off the bat. But if you click the Buzzsprout link that I have down below, it'll take you to the page where you can pick different platforms and choose your platform of choice, and then you can go from there. But so there, some of those, so I don't know if the download count is if someone listens or streams it on like Spotify, if that counts to the download count or not, but I don't really care. The point is, I'm very, very happy. I'm very, very fortunate to have had the chance to chat with so many really intelligent and driven and just incredible people. So thanks to all of you who download the podcast and watch here on YouTube, subscribe, all that fun stuff, because it's been one heck of a ride for the past year. So thank all of you for your support. It means a lot to me that you take the time. I know time is the most valuable commodity. It's the most valuable currency. You can never get it back. So thank all of you who take the time to hang out and interact with me. It means a lot. Before we wrap up, I wanted to just show this because I think this is really interesting. I just received this before I jumped on to record this video. So next year, so in January, we are reading Malazan. Yeah. We are starting a group read for the series next year in January. So Yulene Reeds and I think Stacy may join us. Anyone else is, of course, invited to join us if you want to read the series with us. I think we're going to do a book every 2 months because some of them are chunkers, and I think these books, it's better to let them kind of not be in a hurry, So I think we're going to do a book every 2 months to give everyone time. So I ordered the first book again. I had the trade paperback, or the mass market paperback version of Gardens of the Moon. I actually sold it. I traded it for store credit at a used bookstore. So I wanted the big trade paperback because that's how I roll. So I ordered it today and I received it. And this is what came. And not only that, if I open the book, so it's right set up, right? Open the book. It's upside down. So it's upside down, and I'm sure it was just a cutter thing. You know, they cut the stock wrong. And my first reaction was, oh, I should send that back. But then I looked at it. It's like, that's kind of cool. I mean, I think I will get another copy of it just because I love the artwork. But I thought this was really neat in a messed up mistake kind of way. Sometimes mistakes are cool. So I think that's kind of neat. So let me know if this has ever happened to you. Christopher Warman, the author of Seasons of Abaddon, when I posted this on Twitter, his response was, it's not even self-pub, which I thought was hilarious because most people complain about self-pub, how it's, you know, messy and there's grammar errors and stuff. And yeah, that happens sometimes, but this is it's not a self-pub book, and so it can happen is the point. So I think that's kind of cool. Let me know if you would send that back or would you keep it. What do you think? The seasons are changing. It's getting colder outside. You know, colors are changing. You know, that you get that fall feeling in the air, which I love. So one thing that I've really came to enjoy is that sweater. I mean, I think everyone has that sweater or that hoodie or that lazy sweater that they have laying around that they just pull out of the closet every year maybe, and they've had for a little while, and maybe it's too big on them or maybe it's too small, maybe it fits just right, but it's that cozy, comfortable sweater that you wear. This is my like winter hoodie that's way too big for me because I've lost a little bit of weight the last few years. So it's really big on me, but I still love wearing it. It just gives me that comfy feeling, you know, that winter fall feeling, like you're home, it's the weekend and you're drinking some coffee and hanging out with the family kind of thing. So let me know if you have a winter sweater, like this winter sweater. Let me know if you have that sweater maybe it's ugly, maybe it's worn down, maybe it has holes in it. You just can't bear it to part with it. Let me know what that sweater is for you. Tell me about your winter sweater if you have one. If you don't have one, you're missing out. So as always, thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting, subscribing, all that fun stuff. If you want to connect with me, I use Vero for all my stuff, all the book related stuff, my bike rides, my goofy stuff, the beer I drink, I post pictures sometimes. Stuff I'm doing, I post on Vero. You know, when I'm listening to, when I'm watching. Vero is a great platform. I love using it. I wish more people would use it. So I'm there if you want to connect with me there. I also have a book Twitter, which I try to keep mostly book related, and that is at Steve Talks Books. And I also, of course, am on the forum. That's where we plan all these meetups and group reads and all this stuff. So connect with us there if you want to participate in any of the stuff we have going on. It's not an exclusive club. We're open to anyone. So I know it can feel weird to get into an established circle of friends and you feel like you're a fifth wheel, but we're really cool. We're really open, really friendly people. You know, if you want to hang out with us, don't feel like it's, you know, I started thinking about how it can be intimidating when there's like a circle of friends who you feel like you'd be a third wheel, but we're really open and fun people and we're really easygoing. So if you've been hesitant because of that, don't let that bother you. Don't let that get in your way. We're really fun and we like meeting new people and hanging out. So don't let that get in your way. Come by and say hello. We're a friendly bunch. Let me know what you're doing this week. Let me know what you're reading. Let me know what you're watching. Do you have any special plans, any special events? What did you read last week? Let me know. I love interacting with you and hearing about what your week looks like. Of course, wanted to thank you again for coming by, for spending a few minutes every day with me. This went a long time, so I apologize for the length, but sometimes you get me going. I don't shut up. So hope you all have a great week, and we will talk to you soon.